Welcome back to the Stack Shack Sports Show. Today we're going to be talking about the Houston Texans. The surprise team, really, from last season out of this division. Can they bounce back? How is CJ Stroud going to look in the second season? Is there going to be a sophomore slump? They've added weapons. I mean, if you really look at the key losses, key additions here, the key additions, there's not enough space to fill how many players they added. Key losses, though, they do lose Devin Singletary, starting running back. They also lose a couple of linebackers, which could be difficult for the defense to overcome. But in the key additions, they did add Joe Mixon, a very well-used back there in Cincinnati. Somebody that you can really leave on the field for most downs. A true three-down workhorse back in Joe Mixon that, honestly, I think might even have a slight upside from Devin Singletary. So I think, early on in the offseason, there were some concerns with Houston and losing Devin Singletary. How would that work out? But then they go and they pick up Joe Mixon. They also bring in Daniel Hunter, fantastic edge rusher. Absolutely fantastic. Not necessarily like a huge need from they lost big edge rush productivity, but they did lose a couple of linebackers, and then they bring in Stefon Diggs. I mean, the Houston Texans are really a team that is taking advantage of the fact that CJ Stroud is on his rookie contract. When you have a quarterback who's being productive on their rookie deal, you load up on offensive talent. That's what you do. You grab every piece of weapon that you can, make him better. You load up on defensive talent as well, right? You're bringing in a new edge rusher, one of the best edge rushers, at least productivity-wise, last season. And all of that to take a team that last year made the playoffs, won a playoff game, then lost in the divisional round, but was not expected. You had a first-year head coach, you had a first-year quarterback, and they really shocked everybody with the great season. A lot of young talent out there on the offense, and they just keep bringing in more talent. PFF had them at 13th on offense, 11th on defense. Pretty solid overall. Not a huge weakness on the team. And what are they doing? Just loading up. Now, Stefon Diggs was kind of maybe the most marquee offseason acquisition. A little rocky so far in preseason and in camp. How well does he fit in? There's a lot of mouths to feed on that offense. I mean, you had a good offense. I mean, Tank Dell was fantastic last season. Stefon's not going to be the only wide receiver out there that's going to need to get the ball in his hands and be able to make plays. Stefon Diggs, in my opinion, the last few years, and it's a strategy that's won me plenty of money in DraftKings, in certain big game situations, you can really count on Stefon Diggs to be used and very productive. On the Bills, he was kind of the go-to guy for Josh Allen in situations where they needed a big game, they needed a player to just win on the outside. They trusted Stefon more than really anybody else. Texans, they didn't really need that player. They already have a roster that's built that didn't need Stefon Diggs. They didn't necessarily need that wide receiver one. It's almost like they kind of already had some wide receiver ones. So I do think it's a little bit of an interesting pickup. And Stefon, let's be frank, he has not been the easiest player to get along with and work with at different teams he's been in. Go back to the Vikings. Go back to the Bills. He's a productive player. He's big in big spots. He's a player you can count on in the biggest of moments. But when he doesn't get the ball, there's some tension, there's some arguing, and there's some problems that arise. And I do think it was weird for the Texans to pick up Stefon Diggs just because I didn't really feel that wide receiver was a huge weakness for the Texans. Would have liked them to maybe pick up some other players instead. Now, they have a lot of cap space, and frankly, when you have a rookie quarterback, that is the case. You can load up on weapons. You can be the 49ers, already have Debo, already have Ayuk, already have Kittle, and go, yeah, let's get Christian McCaffrey too. Yeah, well, why not? Bring them all in. Our defense is loaded. Everything's expensive. but our quarterback's incredibly cheap. And most teams who have a franchise guy, once that quarterback's not on the rookie deal, oh, now that quarterback is taking up a big chunk of the cap space. When you have the rookie quarterback on the rookie deal, you can load up. You can afford to. You can afford to say, yeah, our wide receivers are pretty good, but hey, Stefon's out there. Let's go grab Diggs. I think it can work. I think it could help them. He's a fantastic player, but I do wonder a little bit within that offense if this is going to mess with that chemistry, that locker room, with just another mouth to feed, another expensive wide receiver weapon when you already had a decent number of weapons. Now, again, not really worried on a cap space. You got a lot of young players on this team, but as far as touches that can go around, I'm not sure how that's going to fit. And I think that's going to be a key storyline to watch throughout the season is, do they take a step back? Is the locker room okay with this situation? You know, you're bringing in a marquee guy who really is going to want to have the ball in his hands, and I don't really see a lot of touches available. So who's losing touches to give them to Diggs? And I want to see how that plays out. I think they can be good. But looking at some important games for them, Week 5 versus the Bills, I think that's a big game. For the Houston Texans, last season, that was a playing with house money type season. Nobody expected them to be that good. Nobody expected, I don't think, C.J. Stroud to be that good. I thought he was going to be good, just not maybe that good immediately. And a new head coach, and I remember breaking down some film of him in the preseason, and I was really worried about the offensive line, and would he have an opportunity to succeed? And he did. They figured it out. And so I think when you look at this season, you're looking for them to take that next leap and maybe not necessarily become infinitely better than they were last year, but be consistent. Do it again. All right, you did it once. You did it on a rookie deal. You did it when nobody had tape on C.J. Stroud. Give defenses an offseason to, prep for him. We've seen this happen before many times. The sophomore slump. What happens in that second year? Can C.J. Stroud avoid it? That's going to be really the key to the Texans. And I think Week 5 being really probably the first real big test against a team that historically has been pretty good. Now, I do think the Bills are going to take a significant step back on defense. So, could be an opportunity. But if you want to play with the big dogs, if you're a Houston Texans team, you really want to take that leap into that upper echelon of teams to say, hey, no, we're a Super Bowl contender. Last year was not a fluke. It's not a surprise to see us in the playoffs. We're a Super Bowl contending team. They're loading up with a lot of weapons. I mean, if you look at their entire offseason, there are a lot of players here that have moved on, but also brought in, right? They did bring in Al-Shaair, to make up for some losses on the linebacker position, re-signed Dalton Schultz. We've already talked about this, but you just go down the list. There's a lot of players here. A lot of players that they're bringing in. Now, they did lose some tackles, some interior defensive linemen. We'll see how that offensive line is. That might be a concern moving into this, but I think we're going to be able to find out Week 5. That's one of those, all right, you want to be a Super Bowl contender? You're going to have to beat the Bills. And the similar is made about Week 7 at Packers. I think that is going to be a marquee matchup. Two quarterbacks going into their second years as starters. Both were fantastic down the stretch last year. Both looking to take that leap. Packers, there's some people out there saying Jordan Love MVP. Are they a Super Bowl contender? That offense seems loaded. This offense seems loaded. How are the defenses going to play? I trust D'Amico Ryans to get the defense set and ready to go. So Week 7 at Packers, those two games, I think, will prove if last year was a fluke for the Texans. Win both of those games, it's like, okay, yes, they're taking that next step up. And then the other two games I have on that important ones to watch, well, it's coming down the stretch. Week 16 at the Chiefs. Little AFC Championship preview game. I don't know. Chiefs going for a three-peat. They've won back-to-back Super Bowls. They are the team to beat in the AFC. Then the Ravens. Another team in Week 17, those being back-to-back games, go at the Chiefs. Now they get the Ravens at home, but those are going to be probably playoff game type previews, right? We expect the Chiefs to probably be Super Bowl favorites, right? And so going in to Arrowhead, that's a tough situation. Nobody's ever beaten Mahomes in the playoffs except for Burrow and Brady right now. That's it. So can CJ Stroud get on that short list of quarterbacks that have been able to duel Patrick Mahomes, especially do it in Arrowhead? That could be a big moment for him. So I think, Week 5, Week 7, some earlier games that we're going to be able to see, all right, can you play with the big boys? Was it a fluke? Let's see how they do, especially Week 7 at Packers. Go to Lambeau Field, prove that you can play with, a really tough NFC opponent. You won't have to play them in the playoffs, but they are a good team and potentially a Super Bowl contender over on the NFC. Week 16, Week 17, those are two games against really, kind of some of the front runners for the AFC Championship game. So I think, a couple games early, couple games late that we're really going to be able to find out. I think Week 16 and 17, those are kind of like playoff games for the Houston Texans. They're playoff previews for sure, and will be interesting to watch those games down the stretch. So let me know, Texans fans, how do you feel? I'm hearing a little noise out of the camp with Diggs. Maybe already having some conflicts going on. I don't like that, but let me know. Am I overreacting to it maybe? Do you think he can take the leap? Do you think there's going to be a sophomore slump? I'm a little worried about the offensive line, but I think they got a good chance, and I trust, I can't doubt CJ Stroud and DeMeco Ryans. Last season, the first year together, fantastic. I see no reason why they couldn't repeat that. So let me know in the comments down below what you think, and we'll see you next time.